Okay, I'm gonna record it.
Okay. Sometimes it takes time to stream to the, it takes a little bit of time.
Okay. Yeah, for those of you waiting, I'm so sorry for the technical. Okay, maybe I'll start introducing you because it's 6:04 and I'm cognizant that people are joining us after a long day of teaching and working. Hopefully you'll be able to see in Facebook if it's working. Okay, no, it's not working yet. I'll stream it as soon as it gives me the go ahead. Okay, so for everyone who is just joining, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We know that it's that we're all experiencing a lot of Zoom activity throughout the day. And tonight we're gathered here to discuss about pedagogies of the future, children matter. And I cannot think of a better person to engage into this conversation than with Lark Sontag. Um, Lark Sontag is currently one of the partners for the project Seeds for Change, which some of you may already know. No, it's not broadcasting on Facebook Live, so I'll just record it. Um, and I came across her work from another colleague, Julia Feliz, who runs a publishing company run by herself. And Lark Sontag is an author. She's a children's book author and an anti-capitalist child development theorist. She is an independent scholar and focuses on topics of childhood economics, race, and family in North America. And for over 10 years, she's been working with school district colleges and universities to support them on their path to develop a liberating curriculum for classrooms and beginning teacher programs. Her independent research focuses in young Black childhood with the African diaspora in the global North and South. And in addition to the work and research of Dumas, Matias, Freire, Crenshaw, Love, Lee, and Baker Bell, and many others, the last line in her manifesto, Another Childhood is Possible, guides her, and I quote, "The point of childhood is not to create future exploited workers. The point of childhood is to be a child." In her recent book, What Every Child Should Know, which you probably saw from the announcements that I've been posting, was released this month and is now available on Century Publishers. So without further ado, I welcome Lark Sontag.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rodriguez, for having me here. You guys everyone can hear me, correct? Yes? All right, thank you. I got myself a new microphone just for this. Well, actually, I got a new microphone. It just happened to be during the same time. So I'm going to start my talk, and it's going to be kind of maybe not something you're necessarily used to for early childhood, because I'm going to start from a different place than a lot of people start. There's this book, The End of History and the Last Man. It came out in 1992. And that is the point of this book is that the end point of mankind's ideological evolution and the universalization of Western liberal democracy as the final form of human government. It is a political philosophy by an American political scientist, Francis Fukuyama. You might know of him. I don't necessarily agree with this thesis, and I kind of use it because it's kind of a popular idea of what is happening. I believe that we can have change in political, social, economic systems for good, and of course, for ill. We can go backwards, but we can also go forward. we shouldn't assume that market forces will lead us to a greater world, or that the oppression, our oppression, is inevitable, or for us to be free, we must suffer from pain. Because that's kind of like this popular thing that we need to go through pain in order to get free. This punitive based in Christianity, colonized theory that you must suffer in order to reach heaven is hindering. And I know that you guys kind of, you probably agree with that. You wouldn't be here in our virtual space if you didn't think that change was possible. And change and pain does not have to be synonymous. I'm going to look at the West because that is where I am from, and is who kidnapped and enslaved my family over 300 years ago, and why I'm in the United States. We have a concept here that started in 2013, but it didn't. I know you just go with me. A law, Citizens United. It says that corporations are people, that they can take place in elections, that they have liberty and freedom, they have First Amendment rights. But it's not really new if you look at history. What is new is that people who were once colonized and enslaved have the right to liberty and freedom. And the thing is this, if we're not people, then we can't be children. During the 19th and 20th century, there were two tiers of early childhood programs evolved in the United States. One tier was rooted in the social welfare system and was driven by a desire to reduce welfare payments with scant attention to the needs of the child. This system of custodial group childcare for low-income families was in sharp contrast to the second tier of childcare rooted in the education system that provided preschool education mainly for children of the middle and upper middle classes. And this is from Past Caring, A History of U.S. Preschool by Emily Cahan. I can actually provide you with that report. It's an amazing report, and Emily Cahan, she is still alive, and it's a very important report. Childhood is viewed as a privilege by the colonizers. And I'm not just kind of half using that word, I just literally mean childhood is viewed as a privilege by the colonizers. For white men, colonizers, settlers, capitalists, and aspiring white men, colonizers, settlers, capitalists, their dystopian view of the future is a great tool for oppression, power, controlled, and justified by them violence. This is the left and right of a lot of white-centric people and politics. With dystopian future, there's this emphasis on surviving instead of thriving and moving forward. These are all things that are harmful to community, to family, to indigenous people. For me, we can't let them decide our narrative or guide us. We can get inspiration from everyone. To me, anyone who strives for a society, for freedom, for all, is a person that I can borrow and remix. Another Childhood is Possible is based on Noam Chomsky, David McNally, the World Socialist Forum of Ideas. Another world is possible. Clearly, you know that. We don't have to suffer to live. And in fact, cooperation is how we live. Competition and suffering is how we die. We want a world where we are living, not waiting to die. A childhood where everyone gets to be a child. I want childhood to cease being a privilege of only the upper classes, the two-parent households, or as we call it, the nuclear family. Also, if a parent has challenges, I'm working towards a society to get to the point where a parent who needs support gets it. I hope that parents with physical or mental illness get enough support so that their children can continue with their childhood. You know how colonizers have the United Nations? I would like to see a version of that for our people, a sort of an agreement amongst us that we're going to respect people and children across nations, that we look at life and childhood through an international lens. The rich are connected, but we are not. And why? Well, we actually know why, but I think we just need to focus on that a little bit more. And when I say child-centric, I mean, don't forget children. It should be community-centric, family-centric, and I mean teaching these values. And with that, I'm going to go into a little anecdote that I have. It's like one of my favorite anecdotes. Because I taught actually in the classroom for 10 years. One day I had a student say to me, "We have to listen to you because you're in charge. You are our boss." And I explained, I'm not the boss. I'm not in charge of anyone, little or big. I have a role, and my role is the facilitator of the classroom experience. My little students said, of course, they asked me, what is a facilitator? Because why would they know what that is? And I explained that I create a classroom where you learn from your friends by playing, and with them you can learn on your own with your own exercises of your own choosing. And my student argued, like, an action I always encouraged, because arguing is not fighting, is critically thinking, that they had to do what I said. And I further explained to them that in life, you always have a choice. That today we're painting and playing family because that's what you all told me you enjoyed doing. If you would rather not do that, you don't have to. And my student responded, but I want to because it's fun. I like painting. And I said, yes, you do. So who is the boss? And my student said, me. And I said, have you ever thought that no one has to be the boss? Have you ever thought that you're just a member of our classroom community? Of course, they asked what a member is. And I explained, it's a group of people who work together, support each other, and help each other. And then I said, in groups, sometimes you have an idea and others will do it. And sometimes another person, big or little, may have an idea and you'll do that. And they smiled and they said, yes, yes, I like that. And when we have family and you decide that you want to be the mom, and sometimes, and you said, oh yes, I like that. Like sometimes when we play family and I decide to be the mom, and sometimes I'm the brother, and sometimes I want to be the family cat. Yes, yes, we're family, we have roles. No one is in charge of anyone. We're working together and sharing ideas so that we can have fun. And isn't that more fun than someone telling you what to do all the time? And my student said, yes, but what if I need help? You know, what if I need help? And I responded, in order to get help from me, I don't have to be your boss. Don't your friends help you? Your sister? Your cousins? And they said, so I can get help from anyone, even if they aren't the boss. And I said, yes. And that's the best kind of help. It's help you get from your friends. And they said, thank you, facilitator. I said, thank you, valued member of this class. And that's how you begin to dismantle this normalized idea of oppression and exploitation with a 5-year-old, because our classroom should be modeling community and community care and not 1920s factory jobs. The liberty of labor is not freedom, but an obligation. Even if we don't have that 100% now, childhood is about ideals. We're trying to instill ideas and thoughts into our young humans' brains. So how do we develop an alternative future for childhood? What is learning and the importance of children's literature? Another childhood is possible, kind of like the idea is we're only as free as our smallest. And what I try to do is explore early childhood within the context of a society going through late stage capitalism through data, research, and anecdotal storytelling. In 2008, the World Health Organization Commission on the Social Determinants of Health in the section on early human development in the chapter Equity from the Start concludes, early childhood offers a huge opportunity to reduce health inequities within a generation. The importance of early childhood and the education for health across the life course provides a strong imperative to start acting now. Inaction will have a detrimental effect that can last more than a lifetime. A new approach is needed that embraces a more comprehensive understanding of early child development and includes not just physical survival, but also social, emotional, and language and cognitive development. This approach should be integrated into lifelong learning. And they recommend a course of actions for governments. Governments build universal coverage of a comprehensive package of quality early childhood development programs and services for children, mothers, and other caregivers regardless of the ability to pay. All adults at one point are children. Our worldview is shaped a great deal by early childhood. Infants as young as 3 to 6, and also to that report, I can also forward that to you if you're interested. Infants as young as 3 to 6 can non-verbally categorize people according to racial characteristics. Children as young as 2 years old can use these categories to reason about people's behaviors. They can also display racial bias as young as 3 years old. Most kids under the age of 8 don't understand that commercials are for selling a product. Children 6 years and younger can't tell the difference between a TV show and an ad, which is put in front of children, especially children that do not have the benefit of an adult to interact with during what seems to be a down part of the day. They see media as fact, and seeing is believing, and they see the visual world as fact. This is why that, forces that want to oppress us are very, very concerned about indoctrinating children as young as possible. They push capitalism through competitive games. They push ideas of gender and class and expectations with edited fairy tales. They baptize children into obedience before they can even begin to talk at local religious institutions. Advertisers have cradle to grave marketing plans that shape children's ideas of beauty, health, and life. Organizations like the Boy Scouts, which train children to be militaristic and nationalistic, now they accept all genders, yay, begins its programming for children as young as 5 years old. In Nazi era Germany, the Third Reich released a board game that reinforced anti-Semitic views and encouraged players to invade nearby countries. The original Monopoly, created by the Landlord game, created by Lizzie Marie, had rules for 2 different games, anti-monopolist and monopolist. The anti-monopolist rules reward all during wealth creation, while the monopolist rules have the goal of forming monopolies and forcing opponents out of the game. Which one do we have here in the United States? In our current society, we view children not as radical individuals with the ability to change and grow and create, but as future workers within the capitalist system. On the sectarian left, we silo children's needs. During organizing, we say, sure, children are free to come, but we do not center our behaviors or actions around children. The caregivers of children are often not seen in political movements until their children are grown. Our political fight only brings up children if a child dies, so you can put a parent in jail. Test scores are too low, a problem because how can people with low test scores be good workers in capitalism or some other tasks that relate to their future usability as workers within capitalism? Our scenarios for late stage capitalism, pre-revolution, post-revolution, and another view children as an afterthought, and the idea of what about the children? But what about the children? Is this really addressing the children's need and agency, or is this projecting the parents' needs and demands, or maybe the future employer's needs or demands? There's a term that we use often in the United States called play equity, but it's international. There are a lot of people talk about it. But to me, it's like child equity or childhood, because play is childhood. Like that's the essence of childhood and the essence of children's souls. And I'm going to go into United States specific. African-American and Latino children in high poverty and even moderate to low poverty communities are not viewed as children. And this is Goff, Jackson, to Timaso. This is 2014. This is not like, oh, this is like necessarily old research. This is something that's current. This is especially the case in hyper-segregated African-American communities. Hyper-segregation refers to when a community is segregated in 4 out of 5 areas of the 20 areas of possible segregation. African Americans are generally seen and stereotyped as being stronger and having a higher tolerance to pain. Hoffman, Oliver, 2016. And this also applies to children. This idea that African Americans are not human helps in creating punitive environments in areas where they are the predominant ethnic group. This helps in taking away recess, art, and anything that makes a child happy, because only people who are viewed as human are deserved to have happiness. The stated purpose of No Child Left Behind, or NCLB as people call it, No Child Left Behind was a sleight of hand. That under the guise of creating equity, it was used as a means to destroy the best part of education, or rather learning, I like the term learning, by demanding high test scores. It allows schools to abandon recess, arts, music, to focus on the 3 R's. And they were able to destroy the unions by demoralizing and fire teachers that couldn't fix the economic oppression of capitalism. They will often cite that teachers are the most important part of a child's education, but that is simply not true. It's a lie through omission. The real issue isn't so much the schools, but our social economic system that creates haves and have-nots. No Child Left Behind was used to codify social equity. A look back at the policy shows a sea of inequity, injustice, and intolerance. Study after study, the US Department of Education for Civil Rights 2014 points that successful charter schools who embrace No Child Left Behind, and that's kind of like a public school that's not a public school, they simply cherry pick the most historically disadvantaged students with the better formal test scores, while leaving behind the most in need and lower scoring on formal tests. And just so you know, I do not believe in testing. It's eugenics, and I'm totally anti that, but they were using this whole game, it's like a game. It also found traditional school rates, it also found in traditional public school rates for moving African-American and Latino students to special education and out of public school increased under No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind also gave support to continuing the history of overly punitive consequences of African-American and Latino students, even to early childhood education. That means even preschoolers, you know, in the South, it was disproportionately, you know, beating like Black preschoolers. These brutal consequences, such as stripping away art programming recesses, were hidden under the guise of helping children, but they did not help children. And these are all like research. This is not just Lark's opinion. These are all things that you can look up. Play equity is learning. Play is part of childhood. Even adults need time to think. Adults need time to relax their brains and to not be attached to a task. Adults need this to be able to process items and to deductively think of solutions of life's challenges. The United States often does not understand this concept for adults, according to the Center for Economic Research. No Vacation Time Revisited, which is a report. The United States is the only and I hate using this term, but we have to kind of use a term we all know, highly developed country in the world that does not require its employers to provide paid leave. Paid leave is recess for adults. Like, you know, my husband's white, and he has to actually say something, to watch my husband be on his break and to relax so much. Like for me, being a working class, you know, Black person, I'm like, whoa, can you do that? Can you just not do anything? That's so weird. He has a PhD, he has tenure. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be working very hard to keep all this stuff? And he's very much, but this is how we're trained. So it's a report from Center for Progress 2016, who gets time off? Black and Latinos get considerably less time off than their white counterparts, even when we're supposed to be middle class. I have a whole thing about Black and Indigenous people, or African and Indigenous people, in regards to the term middle class. And it's a different topic. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but it's something that needs to be talked about, because to me, middle class means something that we will never be able to experience. We will never be able to have that peace of mind and be mediocre and be casual about it. We're going to always be working like hard. We don't have to, but I'm saying this is how it is currently. And so I'm going to talk about solutions now, because, you know, we always talk about these things and kind of go, okay, what are solutions? And the thing is, I don't have a solution. There's no such thing as one answer. But for children, I'm going to start off with concrete and then go to theoretical. First off, I think one thing you have to really understand is that the right, racist, fascist, nationalists are coming for your children. There is no such thing as apolitical anything for children, and especially that comes out of the United States, and probably anything that comes out of the West. And keep in mind that advertising doesn't just stop at objects. It includes purviews. It includes supporting of oppressive forms of economics, children's books, toys, games. I don't think there's anything that is apolitical. And you know, as my husband's a scientist, I don't want to say 100%. But for me, I would say there's almost nothing that comes out of the United States that's apolitical, that's aimed at children. Everything has a motive. But say something you could do with your little children. People are like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure they don't watch TV, or they're not going to be on the internet, and blah, blah, blah. My mother was very, a, you know, very fun, radical hippie. She said I was never going to watch TV. I was never going to eat Doritos. And that did not happen, because I did have friends, and eventually at some point I left the house. So you want to give your children tools in case you're not there, okay? Teach your child to recognize commercials. As I said, until around the age of 7, children don't understand that persuasive intent of commercials, the idea that someone's trying to sell them something. In fact, you know, they often really like the shows that feature their favorite toys. Like, oh, look, my favorite show is coming on. It's a commercial. For food, they think it's a TV show. Begin by getting kids to understand the idea behind ads. When a commercial comes on, what is that about? How do you know that? What do you like about it? What is it telling you? How did it make you feel? You know, rather than kind of like this, like, well, we're just not gonna ever show them commercials. That's what it's gonna do. That's not gonna work. Reinforce real world lessons. Make the connection between positive action and real life. When you see something like a character being helpful or resourceful, say, that's nice that Joe helped Sam. Make sure that they understand what they're watching. Little kids don't always follow how screen media relates to the real world. Point out connections to the real world, familiar people, activities, and ask questions to check that the kids are making sense of what they are seeing. And that's also, those tips are from Common Sense Media, and I would be happy to forward that to you too. I really like to always give credit to where I get information, because I think a lot of times people start talking and it's like, just this information came out of nowhere. Somebody thought of that. It wasn't just me. So, and also too, kind of like going into a theoretical thing for working class children and the most economically oppressed, to be taught to view your neighbors and family suspiciously is a great disservice. And it's something that, you know, that happens a lot. Oppression feeds on suspicion and mistrust. Minoritized people who do not trust each other lose the power of community. And that is our greatest advocate and sustainer. And, you know, we often talk about the new normal, but if we're still practicing old normals, we'll end up right back to where we are with a different timestamp. And you know, it's like weird. The religious right, they're doing a lot. They're training their kids to look at this stuff and to be sophisticated. I mean, in regards to like racism and horrible things, but I don't know if the left is really doing that in a real concrete way. But let me go back to my point. I think about peace education, which is kind of a concept that I like. Like I said, there is not one answer. I think that's one of the things, kind of like, oh, we just do this, we'll fix everything. Nope. And the ultimate goal of peace education is the formation of responsible, committed, and caring citizens who have integrated the values into everyday life and acquired the skills to advocate for them. And Betty Reardon. You know, we must construct with youngest in our society citizens that can negotiate conflict, communicate, or cooperate. There's, you know, like I said, there's a lot of tools. I mean, I think about anti-bias. You know, it is an important continuous process. It was something that we always have to work on. Bias is a tool of oppression. Bias enforces the classist and racist structure within our social economic system. Bias combined with Adam Smith's invisible hand holds our face and turns it away from justice. I think about Marie Montessori, like, and she kind of provided me a map with her essays, Educate for Peace, a book that highlights her lifelong dedication to peace and equity internationally. I think a lot of times we really, you know, we kind of think about our own little community, not understanding the power of thinking in an international way. And then I think about the founder of social justice-oriented Reggio Emilia and Loris Malaguzzi, and showed me how that peace movements are intersectional. Malaguzzi believed to create a society that's rooted in justice. In society, you must start with justice for its youngest members and be actively anti-misogynist and supportive and respectful of the school teachers. I mean, that's something, it's almost like people who claim they care about children don't seem to sometimes care about the parent. I mean, that's kind of one of this in the United States, it's this idea that, you know, the only people who can be parents are white people, are middle-class people. The rest of us are just workers waiting to like serve them because we don't really have children and all this stuff. So, I mean, another thing is that as we move towards a society where information or de-information can easily be obtained via a few taps of a keyboard, our interactions with our fellow humans online and offline are essential. So we need to teach children the reason why cooperation and communication matters. Communication is something that we're losing. Cooperation and conflict resolution is one of the most important tools that groups have, even groups of 4-year-olds. We aren't going to achieve liberty by the exclusion of others using kind of like in-group signaling and kind of retreating to this, oh, if someone is a Democrat and you're a Marxist, you can't talk to them anymore. Like, we can't do that. We need to act from ideas and beliefs and not be reactionary to hate. Avoiding reactionary responses is difficult, but we must control the narrative. We do not exist as a reply to hate. They exist as a reply to love. We need to practice for when we are free, because our work has to be about the truth that this is getting better. This getting better is possible because not only is another world possible, so is another childhood. And I think that's something, you know, that we have to kind of really think about. And I think another thing that's really interesting is that I'm going to pick up my little book right now. My book, What Every Child Should Know, I wanted to create a guide for what has not yet been mapped. This book is not a map. It's more a reminder to pack snacks before you leave. And I'll tell you something that was really interesting, and it's kind of upsetting. I knew as a teacher that my field was very right-leaning. I didn't realize how right-leaning literature is, early childhood publishing. I mean, of course I should know that, but I didn't know how actively racist that they were. I didn't know how actively capitalist that they were. I didn't know how, you know, certain parts of this book was disturbing to mainstream publishers. And then the thing is that if you know who William Bennett was, the education czar under Ronald Reagan. And William Bennett was a bigot, racist, he essentially, when Black and Chicano people in the United States were finally able to access higher education, he was part of the group of people to defund it. They essentially said that higher education was welfare for it. Higher education was a white benefit, and now Black and Chicano people were getting access to it. And so they actually defunded higher ed. The reason why college is so expensive in the United States is because Bennett and Reagan defunded it. College used to be free in many places in the United States and a lot low cost. After the Civil Rights Act, they decided to defund it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because he edits children's books. He edits poetry books. He picks out which book your kid should read. And this is the kind of people that work in early childhood, in publishing, in education, who decides policy. I'm not going to get into the details of the gory details of, you know, one of the hugest organizations, but just so you know, they are not, people think, oh, you teach kindergarten, you must be a nice person. And it's not necessarily the case. I mean, and also too, I think we should think about, you know, what is radical and what is not radical. I think it's radical to not feed children. That's radical. Like, wow, you're a radical person. You would starve someone. I think it's radical when we see COVID-19 in the United States. We have people like, do you want to die now or die later? That's pretty radical. I think, you know, the United States is radically cruel. And we kind of use this radical term. Like I use radical with people who are like that. That's radical. And even I think about our books. I think about Little House on the Prairie. You guys remember Little House on the Prairie? You think, oh, maybe you don't. But some people think, oh, it's an innocent book. Little House on the Prairie. She's so sweet. And she's Laura Ingalls Wilder. You're watching this. You know what they were doing? They were essentially stealing Native American land. They took that before the U.S. government gave white people land. Well, Pa decided to squat on people's land before they start giving it away so they can get a head start on stealing. Do they talk about that? No, but people think, well, that just happened to be. No, that's a message. They consciously did that, so you're not even thinking like you think that's cool. That's just what happens. Well, that's part of American history, and you don't even think of it as a bad thing. You don't look at the Laura Ingalls Wilder's tale, and you don't look at Little House on the Prairie and think anything bad. Like that's non-controversial. You think about the one episode where Paul, like you think about one episode where Paul, I guess it was the Todd Bridges was on it, and he said, would you rather be black and live for, 100 years, or white and live for 40 years? I mean, and people are kind of like, well, yeah, that's, they were really trying to be good people. It's a good Christian show. No, that show was about settlers stealing land, and just, and of course, if you're stealing land, you're killing people. So that's about, that land was about stealing, that Little House of Prairie is about murder and stealing, and tried to make it a nice little kid story. So I'm going to read a little bit of this, and then I'll let you talk. I know I'm just going on and on. So what every child should know, I have a, and the publisher is Sanctuary Publishers, and my illustrator is Danae Silva, and she's awesome. I'm going to read it, but I'm also going to explain some stuff so that you'll kind of know like what my thinking was. What every child should know, you are loved dearly by someone, maybe even someone reading this book right now. And the father is Asian and the daughter is African American. And to me, I thought it was very important. I wanted to show solidarity amongst people of color. It's very much, when they talk about diversity, it's very much like, oh, my relationship to white people. Like, and I'm just tired of it. Like, I remember growing up I grew up in an all Black neighborhood. And the dream was, in LA, the dream for every neighborhood of color was to be Santa Monica. That was a dream. If we could get to be, Santa Monica's an all white, upper middle class suburb. And I used to always say, Boyle Heights is a 90% Mexican American neighborhood. I said, Boyle Heights, why can't we be Boyle Heights? They have art, they have a theater, they run their own stuff. Why is the goal always what they're doing, what white people are doing? And I'm not saying everything they're doing is bad, but I just want us to start thinking on a different level. So that's kind of like the story behind the dad. What every child should know, cooperation is better than competition. Helping people, accepting help is how we build community with others. We work together, we grow stronger. And kind of like with that, I'm fighting against, I'm sorry if you can see, I'm kind of like fighting against this idea of, in children's books, they even push capitalism and selfishness in children's books. And people think it's like accidental, and it's not accidental. They purposely have this idea in people's heads. I like the little garden in there. What every child should know, workers around the world help keep communities safe and clean. They all deserve fairness, equality, and respect. And then put it right here. And I wanted to show artists. I wanted to show teachers. I wanted to show, a parent. I wanted to show, this is my illustrator. She's like in a lot of pictures. I wanted to show an EMT, just to show that everybody deserves respect. There isn't one kind of job. And also to just give ideas. I mean, I think about Cal Arts in California. For Cal Arts, it's a university. If you draw and stuff like that, you don't even have to take a test. You just do art and you just go there. And it's like a top school. And the thing is that so many working class people, so many Black, Chicano, Boricua people, they don't even know these are options. You don't have to be a doctor to be successful, or a lawyer, or, what every child should know. Science is real. Not knowing can kill. Information helps us understand what you see, taste, hear, and feel. And if you see that. Because I wanted to bring up science. So also too, it's like, all of these by themselves are going to all be like little topics that you can talk about separately. Like once the kids are older, like I want to have like a workshop, like worksheet. And like I said, these are just like ideas that I'm having, but also too, I want to give you ideas like, hey, and things that, that other people can do in regards to children's books. What every child should know, clean water is life. The healthy earth, trees, rivers, and oceans help keep us alive. Take care of them and they will take care of us. What every child should know. All women are women, all men are men, non-binary people are neither, while other people are both. When people tell you who they are, respect them. When people tell you who they love, accept them. And I like the picture right here of the little, I don't know, civil rights movement picture. What every child should know. Racism is real, even though there is no superior race. Embrace equality in every space. When you see something wrong and silently ignore it, you support it. Take a stand against speaking up against, take a stand and to always speak up against injustice. What every child should know. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. People of African descent are mistreated around the world. Black lives matter is a reminder that Black lives should matter as much as everyone else. I want to kind of like show it as an international thing, not just so much here, because I was noticing things. What every child should know. Eagles see no border. No person is illegal. No court order should get to decide who is welcome or when and where they can reside. I don't know if you can see this. Now this is actually kind of controversial because there's this kind of like silent rule that you can't say the authorities or the police are bad in children's books, which is like, I don't know. What every child should know. Women's rights are humans' rights. Your gender doesn't dictate what you like, what you can do, or who you love. What every child should know. Not all wounds are visible. Not every sickness comes with a sneeze. Whether you can see someone's illness or not, help all people in their time of need. And this represents lupus, because it's like a little butterfly. A lot of African Americans have lupus. And this is her leg, so. What every child should know. Autism is not a disease, it's part of human neurodiversity. Do not assume that everyone is the same or should act the same as you. If it's just a list of some of the things you should know, as you grow, you'll see that your list will grow. There is always more for a child and a grown-up to know and learn. So that is the end of my book. And I hope you guys enjoyed my little talk and chat. But I don't know if there's any questions or. Yes.
I wonder if everyone can if they're able to, if we can see your lovely faces and give Lark a big applause and some hearts. I have so much to say, and I'm sure that everyone, you've stimulated everyone. And I mean, this is the reason why you are a partner for Seeds for Change. Like, you are like the epitome of like, what's that about, you know? And it's good to feel your presence, you know, and your energy. Because sometimes, you know, when you look at people in the writing and you look at a photo, it doesn't, you know, that's the thing about the internet, right? Like, it's not the same. And I'm sure that if we were in an open space and if COVID wasn't here, it would be something completely different. I have like a couple of notes and key concepts that I was connecting with what you were saying, but I also want to give others the opportunity to ask a question or to react. I'm sure that we can stay here talking about this because, you know, I was writing a paragraph earlier today about, and I was just sitting down and just like literally imagining what the next 2 to 5 years are going to look like. And every time that somebody asks me, well, you know, where do you see yourselves in 2 or 5 years? And always my answer is dead. Like, I don't like, because that's, you know, I grew up in a civil war, right? So I do not know how to imagine myself in the future. And even as an adult, there's something about that experience as a child, and not knowing if I was going to wake up the next day, that does not allow me to project into the future. But you know, I have a daughter, and she allowed me to think about the future. My nephews and my niece, they allow me to think about the future. I see my own students have taught me to imagine the future, right? So when you said, you know, another childhood is possible, you know, I was listening to you, and the child in me is it's woke right now. Like the child in me that never got to live and dream in the future is paying attention, because there is a lot of unresolved trauma and experiences that I have from being a child, that in my lifetime, I hope that I'm able to reconnect with that child and sort of like heal those wounds, because I think it's going to help me be a better teacher, help me be a better professor, to connect with that. And then something that I'm noticing a lot, particularly now that all the kids are learning online, is the ongoing violence that we are putting not only on children, but on the teachers that are with those kids, in terms of what we expect from them. I mean, you know, we're saying, oh, they're so distracted, they're not really learning a lot. I mean, they're doing a lot already as it is. And the expectation that we have in terms of grades and expectations, and continue to be so violent. Yeah, so that's kind of like my preliminary reaction to what you said. It's not a question, but it's just like more of like processing.
Well, no, I mean, I totally understand. I think that's, you know, that's one of the challenges. I think is that kind of when, depending on how you grew up, to being able to see what, you know, that better things that a different, I don't want to say better, but a different outcome is possible, because you've been told over and over again, you know, you've been kind of like sold this dystopian view of the future, and it's on purpose. You know, they feed this to you, like you know, bad things are going to happen to you, you're going to die in debt, just give up. I mean, this is not like you, it's them. They have actively, so when you're thinking this, like, you know, maybe I should be more positive, it's not even about being positive or negative. They are actively trying to mess with you. They're actively trying to break you down before you even start. And you know, it's, I think that's something that I've always kind of like thought about, especially too, I've taught in Compton, which is a working class African-American Chicano community in Los Angeles. And I always try to show my children hope. There were some people that felt that they did not appreciate my teaching style. They said that I wasn't being realistic, that I was too soft with my children, that because, you know, society is racist and horrible, I should be harder so that they can be so they could be stronger. And to me, I just feel like that's a flawed, you know, I don't think that's correct. I don't agree with it. My mother always told me, you know, my parents always told me, you can, you know, you can do what you want to do, and you can have a good life. And, you know, even when things would happen, I really believed that. And even when I got older and realized, like, okay, there are certain limitations, but I think that to have that idea in your head, you know, it helps in regards to creativity. It helps in regards to development. It helps. And I think that that's something that, you know, children of color do not have, or I guess in the UK it's BAME children do not have. And I kind of want to like disrupt that idea. Yes, so Teresa says she has a question.
Oh, great. Okay, so please, I mean, you and I can talk after, but I think like, please go ahead. Teresa?
Maybe she's gonna type it down. Type it.
Can you hear me? No.
No, I can't hear you.
You are unmuted. I think maybe if you can type it, Teresa, because we cannot hear you. No, we can't. But you can type it. Maybe that will work better. Yeah.
I want to show you. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so while we're waiting for Teresa's question, maybe someone else would like to ask or talk about like your experiences and share them with Lark, particularly if you are right now teaching and you know, we're constantly being pushed to evaluate students, give them a grade, and you know, they have to sort of like do a certain criteria. Oh, Petria has her hand. Okay, yeah. Go ahead, please, Petria.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So it's so interesting hearing the research from 2014 and 2015, and I'm a 1960s baby. So I've seen all this close up. I've been in education since 1970. My grandmother was an educator back since 1920. She had her own family child care home because, of course, we couldn't go to school with everybody else. So she taught the whole neighborhood for years until Head Start came along, and kids now had to go to school for free, and a lot of Black families or Black mothers lost their job to Head Start. So that's watching the trajectory of all of this, the dismantling of the education. We were all in one neighborhood. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. We had two Black high schools. So everybody knew everybody in the whole city. But then they did segregation. So I saw it being dismantled brick by brick.
It's so interesting that you talk about Head Start. I find that really fascinating.
Let me tell you what gave me, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, this might be pretty good. Okay, let's see what this is. Until I saw why they set it up and what the objectives was for, and I'm like, holy moly! If you had given us the money to do this, it would look so different. It would not look anything like it was. It is. We would not be looking to see how do we make sure our kids are not juvenile delinquents, and how do we ensure that they don't go to special ed? Who thought of that? That would have never been in our mind for money to be set aside. I would have never had two groups, a control group and a non-control group, and do them like a science experiment. I was appalled when I saw that. So I've been watching education. I've been in education, and I've watched my children when we lived in Texas, when they started to do the state testing. And it was supposed to be for teachers so that you could become a better teacher and you go more accountable to the students. And then I saw it starting getting changed to its relationship to funding and money, and which schools would get money and which schools wouldn't get money. I mean, I'm in this system seeing it dismantle. So to hear that there's research from 2014, 2015, in order for me to talk about this, guess what I have to do? I got to find research. I've lived it. but I got to find research so I can prove what I'm saying that I'm saying. And not only that, last thing, in the last 5 years, I'm sorry, I went back and got my master's degree in early education because I know nobody was going to believe what I had to say, so I have to get a degree.
No, I believe you. I believe you. I have to tell you something. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to do this.
I have long time. This is a thing too, because you probably know this. Early childhood education is a very small field, and they're only Head Start. I have long had problems with Head Start, and it seems like a good idea, but there are some huge issues with it. And like I said, you're a courageous woman, because that's how you can get canceled in early childhood education, talking about Head Start, because they're like, it's a miracle. They fixed everything. There are a lot of things going on in early childhood education. And I'm going to get to you, Teresa, because I see your questions. There are a lot of things going on in early childhood education that people do not know, and it has to do with Black women, has to do with TANF, welfare. The prison industrial complex and how they use Black men or people who are in jail, and they get credits for that. And this is kind of why people, why jail is what it is. I mean, essentially, you can trace from slavery ended, they started prisons. I mean, it's directly related. I'm rereading Black Reconstruction, and you can see the connection. Now, welfare, when white women got welfare, and I can also give you facts on this, when white women got welfare, there was no work requirement. When Black women were able to get welfare, all of a sudden it was a work requirement. And then, because the thing is, they were depending on Black women for cheap, exploitable labor, domestic labor. So essentially, the reason why the child care centers are open right now is because they're essentially being used as tax credits for people. I mean, essentially, the aid for welfare, TNF, is being used. They're using those women for childcare workers and paying them little amounts of money, and essentially exploiting the field, destroying the field, making it so people can't get any money. I mean, that's totally off topic, but I'm saying it's all related. Like, there's total disrespect for Black women, total disrespect for Latinas, total disrespect for working class people, total disrespect for our businesses, total disrespect for our children, for our small businesses, for our cooperatives, for all of that, dismantling it. And then if you talk about it, they're like, well, Head Start helps. It's anti-racist. It's social justice, and it's very manipulative. They're very sneaky how they do it. And like I said, I've written about this, and like I said, I will send it to you if you want it, because I've written extensively about this. And we're kind of going off topic here, but I see you, I feel you, you're right. But I'm always but it's hard, because you start talking about this, you really will get canceled from early childhood education. I don't care, but a lot of people, early childhood is the only thing they have, and so they cannot even fight for it. I mean, in the United States, you see why, while K-12, they're doing remote early childhood, they're still working, because they need poor women to watch other poor women's children. And essentially what they advocated for was Lysol. Like, they literally just advocated for Lysol for these women. And then all the extra benefits and stuff, the CARES Act and all that stuff, that only goes for the big child care agencies. The small child care agencies do not get it. I'm going off topic. Let me go to Teresa's statement.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, I just saw that. Oh, now I can hear you now, Teresa.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay. So,
I can hear you. Yes, it says, how do you support new teachers when there are experiences that have pushback on anti-Black work?
Pushback.
Pushback. Yeah, pushback. I mean, I kind of got what you were saying. I mean, to me, what I really try to do, number one, okay, you have to have kind of like community of people. You have to kind of have like union support, but also you can't because you're a new teacher, so you can't. What I try to do,
I think maybe I can give you a little bit of background information.
Sure.
So what it is, so first of all, I'm in Canada.
Okay.
Hi. And so our board that I work for, a school board, and our board is working towards anti-Black and anti-Indigenous work. And so all of the teachers are starting to develop training, and we're getting speakers to come in and checking our power of privileges. However, as a new staff, teachers talked, and I hear them saying, I wasn't even participating, I wasn't even listening, it's too much. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is very disheartening as a new staff to hear how other staff are feeling, and it makes me feel frustrated. It's like I am like a lonesome person right now in a clog in the system, trying to feel it. I mean, I know I can make a difference in my class, and that's what I'm responsible for, but how do you take on almost that mental health as a young teacher, as a new teacher, when you hear all of this pushback?
To me, that's really challenging. Like, I can't even tell you like what you should, like it's going to be different for everybody, what you should do, because I'm not going to give you like, oh, what you should do is, do some meditation. That's not going to work, because I mean, I was a teacher, and essentially I was a education specialist. So my children were special needs. My children actually were special needs. They're moderate severe. I started to see the No Child Left Behind issues later, because I had children that were actually, that were moderate severe. And I started having kids that had nothing wrong with them. And I'm like, why are you here? Oh, because they had low test scores. I'm like, this is not what intellectually, delayed. This person's fine. Just because you're annoying does not mean that you're supposed to be in special education. That's not how it works. I kind of, like I said, okay, here's the truth. You need to if you see this, you need to document it. Not to oh, I'm gonna it's the system needs to change from the top. So you're seeing this stuff, you need to keep records of it, and you need to keep going. You need to go to school and you need to get your PhD, and you need to teach people to not be this way. You need to get on the curriculum board. You need to, these are things you need to do. I would never be oh, well, you need to do it. Because to me, your classroom is not enough. And not you're not enough. But if you know that you can make a difference, if you want to make a difference, what we need really is we need people who create curriculum. We need people who are creating policy. Do you know how to write policy? Figure out how to write policy and write good policy. Get involved with those people. A lot of teachers do not write policy. We the thing is that everybody gets siloed. And that's the thing about education. You see how when I was talking about early childhood, I was talking about everything. I'm talking about economics. I'm talking about, because the thing is, usually when you have someone talk about early childhood, they're just we need to have this, they just talk very much about early childhood, and they do that on purpose. They train you to just be my classroom, my students. I'm not going to worry. And they're they train you in this weird systems thinking. Do what you can do in your space, right? Because that's what they're going to tell you. That's what when you start talking to people, they're going to be you need to just worry about what you can do in your classroom and not really worry about all this other stuff. But that's how this whole system continues. I hate the whole system thinking thing. Oh, well, you can't go outside your lane. Yes, you can. If you know that you see this and you see that all these teachers are just kind of I'm ignoring this, then figure out a way to write policy. And I know you're that seems really big, but really, guess what? Trying to do good work, doing social justice work in an environment that is harmful to you and harmful to the students, you're just gonna get burned out. What's gonna happen is you're gonna quit. And you're going to be like, I used to be a teacher, but screw that. That's what's going to happen to you. And I mean, I don't want that to happen to you. And so I always give people options. Like I give people real options, not, you know, not this whole like, you know, do some meditation and drink some tea, go to happy hour, make some friends. No. I mean, if you feel you can make a difference, the thing is that you can make a difference. That's the whole thing. They make you think you can't make a difference. They make you think, oh, you can't write policy. Yes, you can. You know what Maxine, I'm gonna tell you something. I'll give you a story. You know what Maxine Waters, you know, she started off as a teacher's aide. Maxine Waters, she's, I don't know if people know who she is, but she's the big kind of like politician in Los Angeles and nationally. She started off as a teacher's aide. And from there, she saw things weren't right. And she started like, well, I'm going to join the school board. And then from there, she's like, I'm going to join the city council. Now she's a congresswoman. I mean, and think about it. I'm using the United States, AOC. She literally worked as she was literally a bartender. She was like, this is outrageous. I'm not listening to this. And now look at her. People like, you know, people on the right are making memes about her, how they hate her. She's Satan. She's doing good work. So, I mean, this whole idea that you have to stay in your lane, you do not have to stay in your lane. And the answer isn't, well, just do your job. No, they want you to just do your job and do nothing. I'm not saying you're not doing anything. You are doing something. But if you know the system is broken and you have the energy to do more, do more. Maybe that's not you. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, it's very interesting because I think you are a small percentage of people who have already indicated that that's something I should go towards my PhD.
Yeah.
But I feel as though I'm a little bit surprised because people that are not people of color have told me not to do it.
Of course they're going to tell you not to do it.
And they say it's too hard. And I'm like, I would figure a PhD would be hard. So I appreciate that. And then my second question is, just in maybe your passing, I feel as though a part of the issue is that we are expected to support anti-Black and anti-Indigenous work in our organization, except people have not done a self-assessment on themselves of their biases and done a self-assessment of learned behavior that should be unlearned. In maybe your passing, have you seen articles or tools where people can kind of go to look at how to start self-assessing themselves before just coming in and just start throwing everything into the classroom and being like, well, there's posters and books around that should fix everything. Like,
you know, the thing is that, you know, I can forward you some of those assessments, but I mean, to tell you the truth, they don't really work. I mean, people don't tell the truth. I mean, the thing is that, I mean, this is why I'm like the worst consultant ever. This is what will happen. People will be like, so blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are these just the teachers? And I'm like, they're like, yeah. I'm like, do they pick the curriculum? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, what do you want them to do? Like, I'm like, I can't help people who have no power. And are you going to give them money to buy books? Are you going to do, I just tell people the truth. So, I mean, you know, I can give you an assessment, but if they don't really want to make the change, you know, to me, I feel like this whole, number one, you got to make your own lane. And number two, we have to get away from this whole individual change. It's institutional change. We need to get off of this whole get lucky, like, oh, get lucky and get a teacher that cares. No, it should never be that way. It should be like, we should be working towards institutional change so that people don't have to get lucky. It should be systems in place. So if you get a crappy racist teacher, that's not going to mess up your life. Yeah, like, you know, there's no like, you know, like I said, I view like make your own lane, but also to kind of like stay away from this whole individual thing. You know, you want to make the individual, you want to make the institutional change. You want to make, you know, big system changes. If you're going to take your time and you're going to give your soul into something, give your soul into something that can actually do something. And, you know, the thing is that, you know, you probably have enough energy to do something big. Why not do it? And don't, like I said, people who do not listen to people. One of my advice is that don't listen to people who have lost hope. do not listen to people who think they can't make change. They give horrible advice because they're just going by their own life. They're like, things didn't work out for me. It's not going to work out for you. You're like, and they're not trying to be mean, but it's just, it didn't work out for them. They're not you. You know, I always say, you know, everybody's like destined for greatness. It's just people just try to tell them, like, people just try to break you down because people have broken them down, and they're not trying to be mean, but that's what our society tells us, you know, follow directions, follow the rules, and then die. You know, make sure you have a 401k, or make sure you have life insurance. That's their whole thing. Make sure you have life insurance in case you die.
Well, I think that kind of leads to my last point before I don't want to monopolize our time, but I was going to say there's a great quote that I've always used. So being that of Asian descent, our family was very like militant. And so I found it actually really quote, and you know, it's on the chat for people who want it, but it's it says, "It's not our job to toughen our children to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless."
Yes, I remember that quote, and I think it was, I don't know who it was. It was somebody, I think.
L.R. Knotts is what I have it as.
Yeah, but it was one other kind of quote somebody made. No, it was a different quote. It's the wrong quote, but that's a good quote too. That's an excellent quote. I want to show you guys something. My friend's son made this. I don't know if you can see it. Do you see it? It's like a little robot. I don't know if you can see it. It's he drew a picture and she made a pin out of it, and I thought it was cute, so I just wanted to show you.
I think Petria had also her hand up.
So I just want to give some encouraging words to Teresa. And it's interesting because Teresa is my middle name. Like I said, I've been in this business for a while, and I felt like I could make a difference in the classroom. I started off as a teacher's assistant, moved up to a teacher in preschool. After I did that, my children was in preschool and they moved to elementary school. So then I got my degree because I'm following my children. Got my degree and became a teacher. Watched them. When my son went to high school, he said, "Mom, okay, that's enough." So, because I was going to follow him to high school. But what I ended up doing, Teresa, is I felt like I was making a difference too. And as Lark said, you know, work on the space that you're in. So I thought I was doing all right in the space that I'm in. I got 25 kids. I can influence them every year, 30 kids. And then I'm like, you know what, I'm not impacting enough. So what I ended up doing was now I'm a trainer, because I would sit in professional development trainings and I would always say, if they ever gave me the mic, this is what I would say. This is what I would share. This is what I would teach. This is how I would guide. This is how I would facilitate. And I would be learning a lot of information. I listened to what they're saying in the professional development. And I was actually in one a year or two ago, and one lady was talking about language and literacy and said, "Guess what? We've been teaching y'all wrong." And I'm like, what? You mean to tell me for 20 years I listened to everything that you said and I followed what you told me to do, and now it's wrong? I'm not listening anymore. I do my own research. I can read. I read my own stuff. So now I'm a trainer for Maryland State Department of Education. I write my own trainings. I do my own research. I do it on Black children in books. They told me don't say African American because it makes people uncomfortable. And I said, I don't care. I did it anyway. So I have that one. I speak nationally. I write articles for Child Care Exchange magazine, and I'm currently working with Johns Hopkins University to bring books featuring Black children to Baltimore City because the scores are awful and I'm not standing for it. So Teresa, if you see something, say something, do something. It doesn't matter what it is, do something. Somebody else is then going to build you up, and before you know it, keep going. Don't let anybody discourage you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that, Petra. We have about maybe 7 minutes, so maybe we'll have time for 2 more questions before we let our Lark get some rest. Well, if there are no more questions, Lark, you have given us a lot to think about. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be, we're going to be cross-pollinating, as I like to say. And I know that this is not going to be the last time that we're going to be working together. I'm going to be emailing everyone some of the references that you mentioned. So if you can make them available to me, and I'll just forward them to the rest. And this is a conversation that continues, that will continue. I mean, we're going to get up tomorrow morning and, you know, up we go, and we're going to be facing a lot of the challenges that we all know. But food for thought is always good. And I want to thank everyone for participating and for being present. So I'm going to pass it on to you, Lark, if you have any some thoughts to wrap up the discussion, that would be great.
I think it was, you know, thank you guys so much for having me here. I'm, you know, it's I wish I could talk longer, but I don't want to talk too long. But you know, it was great to be able to just have a conversation with people and to kind of like share my ideas a little bit. It's, you know, it's always challenging because especially if you're anti-capitalist, you know, it's very, you know, it's weird. They don't really have some, they're more becoming more open in regards to diversity. But if you're like, I don't want the system that creates racism, then they're like, ah. So it's always good to be able to have that conversation and be very open with it. I also put my Substack in the, I put my Substack, which is kind of like a newsletter, in the chat. So if you guys want to sign up for that. But I'm going to give all of the references to Dr. Rodriguez. I always try to, you know, cite my sources when I'm giving a talk so people can go back and find out where I'm getting my information from. And, you know, and also too, I'm gonna give you guys the information on the TNF welfare, and so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Cause I know that's a big conversation. It's totally like whatever. And we don't even think about it because so many people make money off of this stuff. So they don't want to talk about it. Especially early childhood is more, even people in early childhood are even more oppressed than people who are K-12 teachers. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Rodriguez, for inviting me here. And thank you guys all for your great listening and great conversation and great thoughts. And thank you so much.
Okay, and on that note, everybody, have a good night and may you be well.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.